Jeff Kimball. Jeff is the founder of Empower Change. It's a community dedicated to bringing about silence, or breaking actually the silence of grief, and giving people the power to connect with others and talk about what they're going through. So often when you're going through grief, you feel alone. And Jeff found a niche in this, and he's going to talk about his journey and how this whole thing came to be. So please, without further ado, welcome Jeff Kimball.
Hey, thank you so much, Serina. It's really good to be here. Quite an honor. Thank you. Thank you.
I would love for you to start by just sharing a bit about your own journey through grief and what eventually led you to founding the company, Empower
Sure.
Change.
Well, I guess I should start by saying that I'm the widowed father of two girls. But in addition to that, I have experienced the deaths of my two very close friends, my only grandparent, my mother, my father, and then maybe most tragically, my 9-year-old niece, all within a handful of years. So, and I guess the thing I'd want people to know is, while my life has been shaped in a lot of ways by these losses and successive setbacks, I choose to define myself not by what I've lost, but by how I live and how I love.
Oh, that's beautiful. You're just amazing. So tell me a little bit how you came to found Empower Change.
Well, in many ways, I feel like I'm a grief Sherpa, for the lack of a better word. I've spent nearly 20 years working with people who are suffering, from children in treatment for cancer, terminally ill kids, to parents and siblings of people who have died at all ages and manner of death, from suicide to gun violence to heart attacks and cancer. But the first soul I had to Sherpa, Serina, was my own.
Yeah.
I was raised by two amazingly resilient women who are my guideposts, my role models. My only grandparent, who started her own business as a single woman in the 1940s,
Wow.
and my mother, who started her own business as a single woman in the 1970s after my dad left, and she was raising not only my brother and my sister, but my half brothers and sisters as well. And so I looked at how, they were very much role models for me, and for, giving up was just never an option, for them or for me. But it doesn't mean that, me or like everybody listening, that we're not beaten down, right? And I think for me, being in the room when my 9-year-old niece died was the most difficult moment of my life. And yet for me, I was on the periphery of that loss, right? That was chiefly my brother, my sister-in-law, and my nephew Jack's loss. But nonetheless, it broke me.
Sure.
And in that kind of, through that process, it really inspired me to help others. And that's what led to, to my professional work, with Empower Change and with other organizations. And it's really about trying to provide the support and help people need, non-therapeutic support and help people need, to be able to get through their grief constructively.
That's so amazing that you were able to recognize that there's a void. Our system is broken, our mental health system is broken.
Yeah.
And they need that. People need that. People who are grieving, they don't have the wherewithal to recognize that they're suffering, or they're, and yes, maybe they have therapy or they go for counseling, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah, especially for knuckleheaded men like me, right? There's, too few of us. I think the stat is something like 20% fewer men get the support and help than women. But for all of us, right? For anybody who's grieving, I came across 3 pieces of research, through all my years that back up what you just said, that kind of serve as not only the cornerstone of my work, but kind of like the guideposts for how I approach my life. One is that we learn best from somebody who's slightly ahead of us on our journey.
Mm-mm.
So no matter what grief or trauma you go through, we, yes, the experts help, but we really learn a lot from being paired with somebody who's like us, who sees us. And the second, and this might be surprising because a lot of people think about grief and isolation, they think about being physically alone, but actually being emotionally isolated is far more destructive. So mitigating that isolation, which comes from sitting with somebody who's suffering without judgment and with love. And then the third, which probably doesn't surprise people who are grieving, but might surprise others, is that you need to think of us like we're on ADD, like we have ADD, because we process information in a much different way and at a much slower rate than others do. And it's been my great frustration that a lot of the grief material out there is cold, cliched, and clinical. It's like reading an encyclopedia, and it says like, well, you might feel sad, but you might be happy, and everything. And so what we strive to do in Empower Change, and kind of my mantra of my life, is just keep it real, keep it relevant, and be raw. That's just how all of us are.
It's so nice to hear you say that, because for the longest time when I was going through my own grief journey, and I'm still on my grief journey, but I couldn't understand why I couldn't focus or I couldn't think clearly. And I would read all these books, and there'd be all these stages of grief, and I'd be like, well, I don't have those. And or maybe mine are out of order, or maybe they're all just jumbled together, that I just was broken. And
Right.
I love the fact that you say that you learn best from someone else, because a good friend of mine said, they went through the Alcoholics Anonymous and the seven, and there's these steps, and they said that it's so empowering to have someone who's been through it lead you through it. And that's what you really need when you're going through grief and trauma and mental health issues.
Yeah, you're so right, Serena. And let me add one other complication. Here in the United States, for whatever reason, we don't talk about this stuff.
Right.
So, sometimes, when somebody finds out you're grieving, it's like the plague, right? Like, um, you stop getting invited to cocktail parties and things like that. But beyond that, it's just like, we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to deal with difficult things. And ironically, what we need, I don't know about how, I'm very curious about your experience. But in my experience, what I really wanted was somebody just to kind of lean in. I didn't want somebody to come in and tell me like what to do. And I didn't respond well to that. Like, you got to do blank. Like, I was going to shut that out. But the people that said, hey, Jeff, I'm thinking of you. Or just, you know what? Hi. That's it. Like, just hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Like, that was so powerful to me. And in our culture, we avoid this stuff. And to go to running a nonprofit, I've worked in nonprofits my entire life, and by far, working with grieving people is the most rewarding, but the most difficult.
Yeah.
Because if you think that most people don't want to have conversations, well, most people don't make donations that are sustainable to nonprofits, right?
Okay.
So how about trying to find the people that will have a gift that's sustainable for a nonprofit that want to talk about death?
Well,
There are about 3 of them out there.
it's true. But grief can encompass even more than just losing someone you love. Grief can be through divorce, through loss of a job, through just even being an empty nester as you get older and your children are off to college. And there's so many aspects of this that an organization like Empower Change is so good and can really set people on a path towards healing, I think.
Well, Serena, one of the things I've found, right, and it might be, one of the few truths that's out there that's binary, is that we have to deal with what we feel.
Mhm.
And whatever your trauma is, whatever your grief is, like you said, divorce um, or a chronic illness or whatever it might be, um, it goes one of two ways. You deal with what you feel, and life is very difficult. We're not going to sugarcoat it. At least for me, it has the potential to be very difficult, but there's a way through. Or you don't deal with it, and it deals with you, and that leads to higher rates of divorce, job loss, addiction, like the problems at school, problems at home. That it doesn't have to be that way, but this is the hard part is, a lot of people taking that first step to get help. So, my partner in this work, Roderick Almania, likes to say that grief has an onboarding problem, right? Because he's so right, because so few people are willing to take that step, and it's not their fault. It's because we make it very difficult.
Yeah.
Instead of kind of putting out that warm, welcoming hug to say, whoever you are, whatever you're from, you're home.
Yeah. I see you, I'm here for you. And it's something that is, I'm finding more and more as I talk to people that are on these journeys through grief, and how they have a hard time just even getting out of bed. They just don't have that energy to move on, or to move forward, I should say, not on.
Yeah. So how have how have you found that resilience, or from the people that you've talked to so far, is there a common thread for that resilience?
Everyone that I've spoken to that's gone through grief has a different pathway. For me personally, I I needed to move forward because I had two children that were suffering, and my husband was there. And my husband and I have a great relationship, but he's strong in some ways, and I'm strong in other ways. And our yin and yang, we help each other get through things. And so for me, I knew that I was broken, and I knew I needed to heal. And so I went to a healer, and not everyone believes in that kind of thing. But the woman I met was so gentle and so loving, and she just gave me what I needed, and just enough to pick me up and explain to me how strong I really am. And she could sense that, and to lean into that. And from there, my community, I cannot tell you how loving my community was during one of the worst times of my entire life. They came, and besides bringing food and wine, they just came and sat. My friends sat with me and would tell stories about my son. And those stories would make us laugh and make us cry. But all of that in its own way was healing for me. And other people that have lost family, whether it's their parents or siblings, talking about it, and getting it out there, and talking about that person and keeping their spirit alive, it has a great effect on you, because it makes you realize that they may have passed, but they're still with us in their energy, in their spirit, in their everything they've done in our lives. We always will be connected because we share those memories. So instead of feeling the loss like you and focusing on the loss, I started to focus on, I had 17 years with my son.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I had those 17 years. And I can turn it back to you. Can you talk to me about how you found your way through losing your soulmate, your spouse?
Well, and again, for me, it was that, and kind of like my whole family at one time. You talked before. I heard something that you said that was very powerful about connecting to the loving memories.
Yes.
And you could turn on the television every day, right? Walk outside your door, and life presents any number of brutalities: famine, children starving, war, the inhumanity with which we treat each other, it seems today, people dying of addiction, people, lives taken too soon. it is so easy to get lost in all of that, and I don't condemn anybody who does. I don't judge anybody who does, and I've been there, right? I've been in the deepest, darkest places. um, but for me, when I was at in that spot, I had my girls that I knew that I needed to be. I could not refused to let them lose me.
Mm.
So that meant that I had to be a present, loving father.
Yeah.
And to do that, I had to be present. And to be present meant that I had to acknowledge these feelings as they came.
Mm.
I didn't have the luxury to say like, well, I'll deal with that later. Or, I had to admit what it was. And for me, then what it did, Serina, and I don't know if you had this experience, didn't understand this till later. My whole entire identity changed.
Yes.
The Jeff Kimball that existed before these deaths was gone.
Yes.
And I was thinking differently. I was acting differently. I was making different choices. And, by every definition, my identity was changed. So I really had to fall in love with myself again. And once I went through that process of understanding and owning and earning who
Mm.
I was for all of my faults. And Lord, there are many. Like my kids will tell you, I sent them to school looking like a linebacker most days. You know, I've made more chicken nuggets in 4 years than any human being should have to in a lifetime, and I still turn half the laundry pink. Um, uh, but but for all of that, I've come to embrace this identity of not Jeff Kimball, the widow, or Jeff Kimball, the even the grief person. It's Jeff Kimball learning to love every day.
And God bless you, because that's so beautiful. And like you, I too have transformed. Not that I was such a terrible person before, but my priorities were different. I was focused on just being the mom and the wife and taking the kids wherever, and just a million miles an hour. And I still go a million miles an hour, but I see people now.
Mm.
And you know what's really funny? People see me. I was at Costco this morning and someone liked the license plate on my car, and he stops and he said, "I really like that." And I was just blown away that, how about I tell you, and tell me that. And I've learned that it's so important to see people like that, and to tell someone if I like their hat or their scarf, and that I do. In the past, I would notice it, but I would never say anything. And now that I've come to the other side, I realize how important it is to let people know that you do see them.
Yeah,
And you don't know what these people are going through or have been going through, and just a smile
yeah.
can totally change that person's day for the better. And it's really crazy how impactful you can be.
Random acts of kindness really do change the world, don't they?
Yeah, I think you have a story about a random act of
Yeah,
kindness.
well, yeah. I mean, I have some, but I will share that. But you raised something before about like what do we do, right?
Yeah.
For me, I've been writing and painting my whole life,
Mm.
but it really ramped up while I was going through my wife's terminal illness and then after. And what I realized, well, one is the human language is so limiting. At least the English language is so limiting, right? The word grief, right?
Yeah.
We use that word grief. It could have 10,000 different meanings and depths and variations, but we use words like grief and love, and loss, as if there is this singular monolithic definition. So there's this space before words to me where all this stuff lives. And that's what I explore in my writing and my painting. And I started to share it recently because my kids were calling me a hypocrite for doing all this work and not sharing it. But it was my own kind of therapy in a way.
Right.
And I shared it, Serina, and it's so weird. This stuff is so weird, irreverent and dark. And the first person who looked at it said, like, what the hell does this have to do with grief?
Right.
And I said, well, tell me what could be more absurd than the than a lot of the deaths that we experience, right? So in my ways, it's maybe the most rational things I've done. But
I love that though, but it's a way for you. I mean, I think by creating, just creating, whether you're writing or painting or doing pottery, just creating connects with your soul in a
yeah,
lot of ways and allows you to express what you are feeling.
yeah, yeah. And that has been my way to reconnect to my identity, because I'll write these things and I'll kind of look at it and say, really, like I'll observe myself as I go through it.
Right.
Um, uh, and it's been a very helpful cathartic process and a way for me to really wrestle with a lot of things, because the work is absurd, but it's also, I think, deeply philosophical. Not that I expect it to go anywhere, right? Like I don't have any illusions that people will pick this stuff up or that I'll ever become a writer in a classic sense. But it kind of doesn't matter, for me. As the Greek poet Gavafi said, wrote about the quest for Ithaca. It's the quest that matters. It's the process of life. It's not whether something gets published or
Right.
whether anything gets recognized. So,
I, I agree. I remember there was a time in my life where my husband and I had gone through infertility. And one of the things that I used to do when I would be disappointed time after time of not being able to have children was I would paint.
hmm.
It was just, it's so silly, but I would put Bob Ross on.
Oh,
And,
I love Bob Ross.
and I would have him, like, I'd have all these DVDs. I'm dating myself now. I would pause it and so I could get my little brushes and happy little tree in it.
The furry little animal.
But I would do it and I would spend hours. It really made me happy,
Yeah.
and it was just a way to express all the emotions that you have. And I'm
Yeah.
not, a great artist of any sense, but it brings you joy.
Yeah. Do you think, again, given your wisdom, because you've talked to a lot of people about this, I'm just talking to one person I revere, so you've learned a lot. Do you think that you brought up the word happy? Is that something that we should strive for, or
Happy is, I think, a state of being. I find it's very interesting. If you would have asked me that question when I was 18 years old, I would tell you that all I want in this world is to be happy.
Hmm.
But I don't think I really realized what that looked like. I think that as you go through this journey of life that we talk about, I think there are the moments where you recognize the beauty of the world, and when you recognize that and you're present with it, I think there's a feeling that you get inside. And for me, that's the feeling of that happiness. Um, I'd almost call it a content, an inner peace, if you will, that just radiates from within. And as I'm going through this journey now, after losing my son and all the different traumas or grief that I've been through my life, I've learned that I have an inner light.
Hmm.
Inner light, when it's shining, and I don't suppress it and I don't drink myself into oblivion or whatever it is that I do when I'm not in a good space. But when I let that light shine, that is pure joy. And to me, that's happiness.
Yeah. Well, as you said, that peace is enduring,
Yeah.
right? I think that's what we seek. I think the child in us seeks happiness, and the adult seeks that peace.
Mm, mhm, mhm. It's actually just it's something that not everyone is able to connect with as they go through their journey. And my greatest hope is that more people learn to seek that out and to find that joy, that inner peace.
Don't you think that comes from inside? I mean, we live in a society right now where it's the next deal, the next car, the next home, the next whatever. If I
Mm.
can get over that ridge and around that bend, that's where it lies. And the truth is, it's
So,
inside. It's
but you
always
have to
inside.
uncover it, right, Jeff? You have to uncover it because so often we're our own worst critics. Oh, I didn't do well on the test. Oh, I'm not a great artist. Oh, I can't do this. And we always are self-sabotaging or playing down that inner light and that inner peace. And I think that sometimes when you're surrounded by people that build you up or see that light in you and point out all the wonderful things that you do, I think that helps that little spark ignite. And if enough of us just keep igniting those sparks in everybody, I think we can light up the world with joy.
Serena, that's it, right? Like 100 years from now, no one's going to look back and say, "Oh my God, like where's Jeff Kimball?" Right? I know that I'm a speck on a speck in the timeline of humanity, but the sparks, right? The sparks are enduring. The light endures,
Yeah.
and the light that we bring that to other people, that maybe is what helps us to build this community that can get us through these difficult times and connect to each other. And maybe that's the thing that endures the most. And maybe that's the thing that's important in all this. I,
Um,
I don't know. I'm
I,
still learning.
it is. That's what it is. It's a journey. And every day I learn, and every day I am amazed at the kindness that I can encounter, or that you hear stories, and then other days I'm just appalled and just like grown-ups taking things from children at baseball games. Like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah, yeah. We get lost in some silly things, don't we?
It's crazy.
Do you find too? I mean, it's braising is an interesting point. Somebody asked me the other day what I was afraid of, and of course, I'm afraid of anything bad happening to my children.
Yes.
But other than that, I don't fear anything, and I don't mean that like an arrogant person.
No, no.
I don't because, as my brother told me once, we already had our worst day.
Mhm.
So, so, um, I've been on the brink of bankruptcy at times. I've been up, I've been down, um, I've been beaten around, um, but I think like because I get from you when I first met you this enormous well of light and gratitude,
Yes.
and I think that just comes from perspective sometimes, right? Um,
I I think so. I think it's what I'm trying to. I mean, I don't have all the answers, but on this journey and talking to people, I think that I've always been an optimist, and I've always tried to look on the bright side of things. But when you've gone through something as hard as I've gone through, it's really hard to see the bright side of things, and you can get lost in that. But on the other end of it, if I focus on the light, and I look at all that my son has taught me through this journey, I can't help but just be in awe of all the signs and everything that I kind of took for granted. I now realize, no, these are just signs of the universe. These are, I guess how they say is, if you open yourself up, what you attract is just amazing. And the light and the beauty that comes your way, I can't even put into words what that feels like. And I am grateful. I'm so grateful that I'm open, and anyone I talk to, tell my story to, and I try and show them when they're grieving what I've seen. And it's hard. It's hard to open yourself up to that, especially when you're not used to that, and you're used and you're suffering because you're sad and you miss that person. And look, I'm sad. There's not a day that goes by that I don't miss my son, or think of him, or talk to him, or yell at him, or whatever. Um, but at the same token, I try and shine my light and look at the beauty that's come from something so terrible.
I think you just captured maybe the most important thing that we'll talk about today, right? You really just did. Um, Life can be brutal.
Yeah.
But sometimes it can be beautiful even at the same time. And I think as humans, it's really hard for us to reconcile because we're creatures of habit and we like to do whatever is comfortable.
Mm.
And the only thing we know about grief, no matter what form it is it's wickedly uncomfortable. So you have to sit with that suffering
Yes.
unconditionally. But when you do that, as you said, and you then begin to open yourself up to that suffering, you open yourself up to the possibility of love and of light.
Mm.
And um, and that's how you can get through a day where you said where you wake up and you miss your son terribly, but
Yes.
then something beautiful can happen that day. It just doesn't have to be that all day.
No.
That's maybe the message that we have for people is that there is a way through.
There is, and I just have to be open to seeing the signs. I sometimes when I'm the saddest, I wake up and there'll be a giant heart fluffy cloud in the sky and I see it. And I know that that's a sign for me. And
Yeah.
I know he's just sending me love. And it's amazing. I have a girlfriend, she and I send each other all the hearts we see in nature.
Mm.
It's like a little game we have. But it's
Right?
just beautiful, and it's the love, and we know we're surrounded by it,
Yeah.
and it does help. It helps you to get through those tough times.
Yeah.
And so let's talk a little bit about you. I mean, looking back, there's a lot of myths and misunderstandings about grief. Um, what do you most wish people would just let go of?
Well, first is that grief is linear.
Yeah.
There's stages of grief, right? You said it before. It's like, what stage am I in? Same with me. Could I experience all stages in one day? Um, Grief is not linear.
Mhm.
You don't get over it. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't progress in any one fashion. It's circular.
Yes.
It comes and it goes, and it comes and it goes. And me looking back, sometime there was a moment, um, almost 20 plus years out of my grief where I was crippled one day, just knocked down, devastated. Um, and and I remember criticizing, here comes the judge, right? This, of the expectations that says that this is the way it's supposed to be, and you're not supposed to be this sad 20 years out. And I'm like, F that,
Yeah.
damn. And so I wish people would understand that and have compassion. I once had somebody literally tell me, um, online. I made a Facebook post when I went to see James Taylor, which is one of my wife Amy's favorite musicians, and my daughter wanted to go. So we went, and at her insistence, and we were there, and I couldn't help but think about her. And so I posted a picture afterwards and said, "We had a lovely night, and can't help but think about Amy."
Mm.
And somebody posted and literally said this: "Isn't it about time you stopped using Amy and just stopped posting about these things?" And I thought, I feel really sad for you, was one. Two, I wanted to tell the person F off, but that was my angry side.
Amy was with us.
But, but no, I just looked at it as ignorant. I had a school psychologist tell my daughter we experienced the tragic death of a dog. Um, it was 6 years after my wife died, and it triggered the grief in my daughter.
Yeah.
So she went to see her at school, and she said to her, "Shouldn't you be over this by now?" And I just thought, again, this is a professional. This is a professional. And I thought, okay,
Yeah.
people don't understand grief. So the biggest myth is that it's linear. No, it's not. It's not.
Definitely
And
not.
I think, another one to bust, is that grieving people are sad all the time.
Hmm. True.
Um, I'm not, people see me and they want, even all these years out, and they're kind of like, oh, the poor widow. No, I'm Jeff.
Yeah.
And I don't want to carry that label. And I'm kind of hilarious. So
I find you funny.
no, I'm not really, but just don't expect me to cry all the time. That's all.
Well, that's the thing. I remember I could relate because when I had lost my son, I had gone to a little holiday party that was going on at our local club, and someone came up to me and they said, "Oh, it's so nice to see you're out." And I said, "Well, I do live amongst the living, and I be here dancing and socializing than home crying."
Yeah.
And but people don't understand that, and that's another problem, right? How people I mean, have you had any people, I know you said online, but when they don't know how to talk to you, or sometimes people just they don't stop reaching out.
I I've if they're you can go on our website at empowerchange.org and see some of these stories, but I'll tell some stories there. One of them I tell about one of my closest friends. Um, just after the last loss, he disappeared, and it was because I think the grief was too hard for him.
Mm,
Um, but a lot of people just don't understand how to process grief, and so they run from it.
yeah.
And then what it does is it leaves the grieving person even more isolated.
Mm,
But then I found, it's interesting. I don't know if you found this, Serena. I lost some really good friends, some people I loved truly. And I just understand that that's the nature of life, right? People come and people go. Um, uh, I miss them. I'm not angry at them. I miss them. But I also found that people I kind of didn't know, never expected to be there, leaned in big ways. And I've made some beautiful friendships, in that respect.
yeah.
So it just shifts. If I could tell my younger self, I'd say, don't do anything for a year. That's legit. Don't make any big decisions. I did. Um, and know that your identity is going to change and all these relationships are going to shift.
Yes, they do. They do. But sometimes what you learn is that not everybody is meant to be in your life your entire life.
Yeah.
Not everyone lives to be 100 years old, and we all have different journeys. And to embrace the time you have with those people and to cherish them, and if they move on out of your life, then that's what was supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's and then sometimes they come back too.
Right. Right. That's the absurdity of life.
So let me ask you, I know that you're doing some amazing things with Empower Change. Um, so what is your goal, or what would you, if you had a magic wand, what would you love to see Empower Change do?
Get people more connected. Let them know that they can get help and they can get it easily. I think some of the 70% of the people that are grieving don't get support.
Yeah.
And let's park the whole mental health thing, but we'll come back to it. So if they don't get the support, it's because it's too difficult or they can't find it. Um, but also, I just think that, especially, we have to be wary about the use of technology. There's pluses and minuses to everything. But one of the good things about it right now is that it can create connection. We can build community. I don't want to find it on Facebook. I don't want to find it, in some of those social platforms. And so what we're really doing is building a way for people to connect other people who have a similar loss, and they'll just be able to share. And then so there's two components. It's an online community where people can meet others like them. And then the first part is we're going to share videos. We're not going to pretend that we're experts. We're just people that have been through this. And so people will share their experiences. And I think we can learn from each other.
Yes.
Maybe I'm naive, but I don't want to change the world. I just want to help people learn and connect.
Yes. Absolutely. What was one of the things that helped you get through one of the hardest times of your life?
Always my children, but before my wife went in for what turned out to be a 13-hour surgery where they had to rebuild part of her spine
Mm,
and her rib cage because her cancer was making her paralyzed. It ended up making her paralyzed, but they were able to buy her some time, and it was moving and invading into her lungs. And before she went in, we had recently seen Finding Nemo, and she turned to me the last thing she said before they brought her away was just keep swimming.
Yes, I love that.
And so that's kind of what, at the end of the day, I just keep swimming.
Oh, that's such a beautiful analogy, and it's true. It's what you do, right? You just put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
And they always say, in order to see the rainbow when you're in the storm, you got to move through it.
Yeah, right. I mean, there are days when that's all I can do, Serena, right? And for anybody who's grieving, I get, that's just the way it is. There are some days when I feel like superhuman and I can do a ton of things, but if on any given day all I can do is just swim a little bit,
Hmm.
then I have to say, like, that's the best I can do, and that's okay.
That's it. I find myself some days I just want to lay on the couch with a blanket and watch a movie and
Yeah,
just get the world around me, or grab a book and just
yeah,
lose myself for a little bit. And that's okay.
yeah.
You have to give yourself love. And that's the other thing I've learned is self-sabotage only gets you so far.
Yeah.
Self-love is what's going to bring you through to the other side,
Yeah,
really.
I allow myself, whenever I feel wronged, and I'm not even sure I can use those words anymore. Um, I allow myself a very fixed time to be a victim. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, you've got till the sun rises tomorrow if you want to feel sorry for yourself, and then forget it.
Yeah.
Just no, I have no use for being a victim of anything. I own, my world. I own my choices. I can't control what happens to me, but I sure as heck can control how I respond to it.
Oh, for
And
sure.
that's as Viktor Frankl said, that is the last freedom we have.
That's right. That's something I've embraced as well. So you've gone through and you've um, overcome some huge obstacles and hurdles. And what do you find is your secret sauce that you um, that helps you keep empower change? Um, Trying to think of the right word here, to keep it going, to keep people interested, to
Well, two things, and one is really hard. Things like that. Believe it or not, I hate self promotion. I and it's I know that in the guidebooks for how to become a CEO and a leader, it's all about promotion, right? Um, it's my Achilles heel. I find it disgusting, and I have a hard time sometimes sharing this stuff, but I know I have to do it. So, um, there's that piece of it. But for me, um, I just I refuse to give up. So I just I look to whatever one might call it, God, the forces of the universe, whatever it is, and say, like, is that all you got?
mm,
I just refuse to be taken down, and I refuse to give anybody power over my ability to love. So to my last breath, um, I will meet somebody with a smile and a hug,
that,
because that is the only way I can rationalize and bring meaning and purpose to all this, is to live my life in service to those who are suffering and need help and want it, and to meet every bit of brutality with as much love and kindness as I can.
that's so amazing. I just kindness is everything, and I find that as we live in a world filled with technology and social media, and there are a lot of people that hide behind the screens, and some for good. They give you a lot of love and empowerment, and then some not so much. Um, because Empower Change is an online presence, how has it adapted, or how do you hope it will overcome some of the pitfalls that
Well,
technology?
I know technology is, like, again, like, it could be the bane of our existence, right? We have to use it cautiously and judiciously. It's um, we in a here I am talking about a guy who's building an online platform, right? But it is geared towards human connection.
Mm,
losing our ability to connect with and relate to each other, especially people that aren't like us. The the thing about grief, as much as we wanna pretend it won't, it's gonna impact us all.
Mm.
So, for me, I used to work in the US Senate, and, there we had tribes, right? There was the Democratic side and the Republican side. I worked for a Democrat named Jay Rockefeller, but my best friend worked for Bob Dole, and we found a way. We were like oil and water, the odd couple. He was the one who died when he was 26,
Oh,
but of a rare heart disease. But we were best friends through and through because we loved music, we loved being together, we loved having fun, we loved to argue like in the most constructive way. And we've lost our ability to do that right now. We've lost our ability to see each other and talk to each other. We try to convince everybody using these, rational arguments about who's right and who's wrong when we're living in a world of deep feelings. And we've lost the ability to understand what somebody else feels
mm,
and see past the whatever label they might want to present. Some of which I definitely don't choose to put on myself, but nonetheless, I don't go into this process saying, um, you're blank and therefore I'll help you or won't help you. It's that you are grieving and here I am for you.
yeah.
Um, and and so that the technology challenge is hard because AI is making a lot of the stuff we do redundant, but it can never take the place of human connection.
That's
So hopefully it'll make the process of connecting to each other easier.
mm,
But at the end of the day, it's about what you're doing here, Serena. It's about opening up and engaging in conversations about things that are really difficult. And there's no piece of technology in the world that can meet suffering.
no, no. That's true. Oh boy. What are your hopes for the future? Where do you see your organization in 5 or 10 years, and and what would you like, what new programs would you like to see come from this?
I, I want to be able to reach that 70% of people that don't get support. So
Mm,
in some ways, I want to be scalable. I want to be able to find some, grief resources that can really connect to people where they are, that aren't cliched, that aren't clinical, but they're real, they're raw, they're relevant, right? Where we can learn from each other. And so I hope we're able to impact a lot of people. The other thing, though, I want to do is kind of countercultural. I want to do more human connections. I want to do retreats.
mm,
Um, I want to be provocative. I want to have people on platforms like this or adopt your platform to allow people to come in and listen to different points of view about a lot of things. Because he said, like, grief and trauma can come in so many forms.
mm.
How to rebuild your life after a divorce is very, in some ways, is the process is very similar to how to rebuild your life after the death of a spouse. Um, and there are a lot of people who live in the shadows of humanity, right? And they suffer quietly. Somebody who's been divorced, who's put all of her, you know, time and effort into building a relationship to see a spouse turn away abjectly and, chase a younger woman or the next big paycheck or who lives indifferently with somebody. And, that person deserves to be met in her suffering.
Yes.
And I want to be able to know that we can build something that can help people who want to find their way through in a constructive way to break through the shackles of destruction.
Like you've said, have people that have been through it help them come through to the other side. And that builds the community. I think it's brilliant, Jeff. I honestly,
Thank you. And I don't want to dismiss the importance of mental health, and specifically mental health work, and specifically therapy, right? We are doing mental health work, Serena, you and I, but we're non-therapeutic. In a perfect world, there would be enough therapists so that we weren't needed. But the truth is there aren't. Most of us live in a mental health desert. Most for reasons I'll never understand. And here's my bias, right? Insurance companies treat the mind and the brain differently than the body. Go figure. I thought they were all connected. And so they're treated differently when it comes to reimbursements. So even if you could find a therapist that can help you with grief, most likely you can't afford it, or most of us can't. So we have to exist.
Mm.
Um, and and I really want to do work with other. There's so many good grief support groups out there. You can find them all on my site. And if they're not there, let me know about one. We list them all because the sad reality is all of us combined still can't make a dent.
Mm.
So we that's why I want to try to make this work scalable.
Oh my gosh, I applaud you and everything that you're doing. And I have to ask you about, I know that you told me this story and we were just talking about acts of kindness and random acts of kindness, and I'm going to make you tell the story. So for someone who's listening right now or struggling and or doesn't feel like there are kind people out there, I need you to tell the story.
Well, there are a couple. One of my favorites was I once dressed up with colleagues of mine, but I dressed up in a T-Rex costume, and got gift cards and flowers and went to a low-income health clinic near where we live in Norwalk, Connecticut, and walked in and gave out gift cards and hugs to the kids,
Oh,
their parents, and to the nurses. But then I did something that people criticized, and I still stand by to this day. I then went to a wealthy community and stood on the post road, which is the main thoroughfare. It's like the main streets for the towns we live in, and and I handed out gift cards and hugs to anybody who came by and flowers. I
mm.
started in the fire department, and then I just walked down the street because I've yet to meet anybody that doesn't need a hug.
Oh my gosh. I
Um,
I think that's so beautiful. And sometimes, we know that the poor communities can really use it, but sometimes the wealthy communities, they lose sight of that interaction as well. And
exactly.
I think it's beautiful that you do that you don't just single out, one group over another group, that you realize we all need love and we all need kindness. And
Who doesn't want a hug from a dinosaur, right?
I love
That
that.
goes back to my dysfunction too, of like of not wanting to be seen or recognized. So I figured if I did it as T-Rex,
Oh.
I could be anonymous. And here I am telling everybody.
That's okay. That's all good. We won't tell them it's you and the dinosaur.
That's good.
Oh my gosh. So is there a small daily practice or a ritual that you believe helped in your grief journey, or tiny steps that maybe don't fix everything, but that really matter?
Well, somebody really wise once said that you really can't control what you think, but you can control how you react to what you think, and then you can build habits, and habits can lead to making good choices. So there's how you think, how you react to what you think, and habits and choices. And so for me, I did two things years out. One was I gained a lot of weight because I was eating my grief, literally.
Mm.
Um, and I lost it all and then some by swimming every morning.
Ah,
So
keep on swimming.
just keep swimming. Somehow it ended up working for me. I fell in love with swimming, and it's because when you're in that water, you and the mind starts to race. One thing I'll do is like I'll tell it literally. I'm like whatever I'm thinking about, like get out of the pool, and then it becomes after a bit it becomes meditative for me.
Yes.
Um, the other thing I do to honor all the people I love every morning is I ring a bell
Mm.
because I just believe in the vibrations of the universe and how they connect us all. Everything, every being, everything. And so I want to, I don't want to pretend that they're still here, but I ring the bell and I just tell them I love them.
Wow. I love that. That's beautiful. And
Mhm.
there's something to be said for sound vibrations. There are sound baths, and and the energy that you get from that. It's amazing.
Yeah.
For someone who is grieving right now, for maybe family, friends, coworkers, what do you think do you wish they understood? How can they best support someone who is going through grief?
Um, Lean in if you want to support somebody. Lean in. Just You don't have to tell somebody what to do. Don't tell them how to do it. Just let them know you're there and you love them.
Mm.
Um, if you're going through this now and you're deep in that phase where you're living with a veil of sadness and darkness that you feel will never lift, um, I this might sound strange, but I want to honor that. I get that. I have been there. Um, and I'm not going to tell you anything about it. I have some reverence for it because it represents all the love that you have. Um, that veil will change because it's inevitable, because change is happening all the time around us. So it will change. And um, I didn't want to hear it at the time, but you do have power over that change. You don't have power over what happened to you, and I'm very sorry for that. But you do have power over how you choose to react.
Yeah.
And so bit by bit, you can find ways to do things that are meaningful. They don't even have to be joyful for a long time, but just purposeful, meaningful that will help you learn how to keep swimming.
I love that. That's just that. It's so true, and I find that just holding space for people, then when they're going through things, sometimes you don't have to say anything, but you just sit quietly by, and
Right?
just maybe hold a hand or just let them know you're here, and
Yeah,
it,
Serena, I think that is the most powerful thing you can do for another human being. My God, we want to change it, right?
yeah,
But sitting with somebody who is suffering and just sitting, that's one of my favorite movies, The Horse Whisperer.
yeah,
Robert Redford sits in the field with this damaged horse and waits for it to come to him. Just sitting with that suffering without judgment, and holding that space.
yeah.
I don't know if there's anything more powerful than that in life.
My gosh. If you could go back to the day when you just first felt overwhelmed by grief, what advice would you give yourself?
Um, that's a great question. I think I would say don't do anything big the first year,
Yeah.
because I was in so much pain. I just wanted it out of my home and I sold it.
Yeah.
And I wish I didn't.
Yeah.
All years later, at that time, it was so hard to live in that house. Um, I would also say um, that I love you. Like it's gonna be, it's you're never gonna believe it, but it's gonna be okay. Um, but at that time, the day when Amy died was my daughter's third birthday party. So that day, I had to have, I think we had 25 kids in, and so that day, the surrealness of that day, of in the morning going to the hospital to see Amy dead, and then coming home to throw a party with these kids running around screaming. What I would tell myself is to remember the looks in those kids' faces, because they don't carry the baggage that we knuckleheads do when we get older. They were just love and having fun. And
Yes.
I wish I allowed myself to be more in that moment than in the morning.
I love that. I do. I guess I'm going to ask you to lighten it up a little bit
Sure.
and little lightning round questions. Maybe, do you have a song that gets you through your hardest days?
Oh, there's a few. Always by Phil Collins. That was my wedding song.
Uh,
Um, uh, the song 33 God by Bon Iver, Justin Vernon, and the Pyramid Song by Radiohead. Uh, I love Radiohead.
I was going to say, really? Okay. I love that. And if, how can our listeners help empower change? I mean, aside from financial donations,
Yeah.
what are the ways are most helpful? Like sharing stories, volunteering, advocacy?
Yeah. Other than finding us a billionaire to fund all our work, no, seriously, what we need is some people to go on and share their story.
Okay.
And it really just needs to be a few minutes. You can share your grief story, or what we do is ask people, what's the one piece of advice you would give, kind of like you asked me. What's
Mm,
the one piece of advice you give to somebody who's grieving? And I think that would be super powerful.
that was going to be my actually one of my next questions is what's one lesson about grief that you wish you could teach every high schooler?
Oh, um, That's what can we teach a high schooler, right? That's such a difficult age. If there's one lesson I want to teach them, it's to open up and allow yourself to love.
Mm.
Don't be afraid of it.
That's powerful. That right there it is so powerful. And I think if we get enough of our youth
Yeah,
actually opening up to that, it could change the world,
yeah,
literally.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, Jeff, I have to thank you.
Oh, thank you, Serena. It's been such a pleasure.
I end every interview with a poem written by my son.
Mm,
And this one that I chose today reflects the spirit of our time together here and meeting new people. He wrote about camp. He loved camp. And
mm.
I'm going to share this with you. I have to put my glasses on because he typed small. As I look around myself, I feel so compelled to smile and hug. The vibrations and energy coming off others causing a chain reaction that factions the results of happiness. Happiness is different for everyone and anyone, but all people conjugate you, the source of power that people associate. Love, kindness, smiles, and hugs, even though there are so many bugs. Camp is a place where anyone can be anything, but most are true to themselves. Camp is a place where people's true colors are shown, where people accept others for who they are, not for who they know. Camp is a place to learn from others and not just stick to yourself. The concept of acceptance is easy to grasp, but not to execute. Most people just reboot, go back to the lines that society draws for them. Most people can't comprehend how a few nice words could mend a broken soul
Mm.
that almost feel off the deep end. Camp people know this, and now you do too. Spread the word to stop the impending doom that so many souls see so soon.
Oh, that's beautiful.
He had a knack for just getting his words out and into poems and making you feel things. And
Yeah.
I'm
May those words ring through time, right?
oh boy, you're not kidding. And Jeff, thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing your story. I am so grateful to have met you. And
Likewise.
to our listeners out there, go to www.empowerchange.org. Jeff's site is a wealth of information, and he is just a beautiful soul. And to all of my listeners, SOS Stories of Survivors, where survival sparks the soul. Tune into us next week. I'll see you then.
Thank you.